This park is just something to play on. It's not like playing in another ground. It's always going to be our home, so that's why it means so much to us.
When you come from nothing and you want to go somewhere, there's a bit of fight there. I think this joint's got it. We'd have been dead long ago had we not had that. Had we been a soft mob, we'd have thrown the towel in.
I suppose I hate to lose, and lots of people want us to lose, expect us to lose, but we ain't going to go away. So we're here for the long haul.
They're running it. Phelan, Meninga, Red will score, I think. He's in. That could be the one that wins it. Mick Mearson's got the zig.
First came to Davies Park in 1967 as a 10-year-old. All the boys came down to watch the footy one Sunday. It just instantly became part of my life.
My early memories were trying to find a spot where I could see the game, and it was impossible, so all the kids used to sit on the inside of the fence to be able to get a view because everywhere else was packed.
Whenever there was a big game here at Davies Park, I was here. I knew this place back to front. I knew the riverfront. We were spending half our time down along the river and on the jetty, and probably mostly we were on the field in between games and at half time just playing footy.
You've got to make your own fun when you come from the poor end of town. In the bush, you know, I mean, it was only cricket and rugby league, and if you had a quid, you probably had a tennis court, you know, but the southern end of town's always been for the battler.
I didn't fit in straight away, no, they made me coach pretty quickly, and so I had a bit of trouble fitting in. I tried to play and coach, but I couldn't do that very successfully. I decided rather than drop myself, I'd retire. So I retired halfway through the season. I think anybody missed me as a player.
I put my heart and soul every week in playing for this club, and I know a lot of other people do. You know, everyone should be, and it definitely does. It makes you want to be a better player, a better person.
When I was like any young kid, I got a good initiation here, you know. I met up with, like Greg Vivers was the first guy, and he gave me the nickname Chicken George because of my fetish for eating chicken.
I wanted to play 100 games and that was it for me. Something about the place got into my blood and I just stayed. The Queensland side and the State of Origin side looked great to have, but captaining South was probably up there as being my best moment.
And leading them out will be Bruce Haskell, their skipper, I'd say. Bruce Haskell, captain of the Magpies.
Club football in Brisbane, rugby league in particular, was the #1 sport. A lot of people don't realise that Davies Park, being the headquarters, that's where all the big games of rugby union and rugby league were played. I'd rank it #1 most picturesque ground in Brisbane. It's nestled in the heart of West End, which is only a few minutes walk from the city centre.
When we'd play here, cars would be parked right up near the school. They'd be parked for miles and this ground would be packed. You couldn't get near the ground.
During the war years, South had a very colourful history.
We never used to play at Davies Park. Couldn't get near the place because the American Army, they confiscated the whole park for a searchlight brigade and ACAC parade. They were trying to save the gasworks there in case there was an air raid.
South have always had that knack to be able to adapt and survive. It didn't take long for the administrators to come up with a solution. That's okay, we'll just move up to Musgrave Park. So they rigged up some Hessian showers in the trees.
We trained down there under carbine lights, and when the ball hit a carbine light, they explode. There was shrapnel everywhere and blokes diving everywhere, and plenty of language.
Look, it wasn't the most glamorous place to live back then. Tough streets, you know, and you learnt the hard way.
I can remember the time I come down as a kid and there was fights everywhere. I used to climb the goalpost. They were a pretty wild mob. They chased the blokes down the river and they swim the river to get away from them.
Pretty well every sport you can imagine's been played here. Rugby league, rugby union, they've had basketball, had a swimming pool, speedway.
The Yanks used to play their gridiron and we used to beat them every time. They couldn't imagine how we could beat them playing their national game.
Back in those early days, I mean, this was really the focal point to the locals in this little area of West End. Davies Park was really part of their life, you know, I mean, to come down here and watch football, I mean.
It wasn't hard to get drawn into, I guess, the local rugby league landscape. Crowds of 20,000 there every Sunday. Rugby league was the only big show in Brisbane.
You could imagine how in awe I was of being able to run onto the field and thinking, shit, Mal ran on this field, and Gary Belch ran on this field, and Peter Jackson, and all these players, Johnny Elias and Norman, all these were my heroes. And being able to run on the same ground as these guys, it was special.
Well, I played second row mostly because Bill Tyke was a lock forward here. Well, it's getting a bit sissy-wise now. They got them sitting on the sideline, run them on, run them off. It makes a bit of a Sheila's game, I reckon.
When you played somebody, I could nearly guarantee that the bark they left behind was enough to give you the satisfaction that you achieved something on the day, you know.
It was a completely different game, really. You get some of the guys that played in the early 70s and then going back before that, some of those guys were serious hardheads. They were fearless. And there was traditional softening up periods, as they called it, in the first 10 minutes of a game. It was pretty well a free-for-all until one side could outpsych the other.
I remember I got sent off here once in a trial match against Western Suburbs. He said, off. I said, what for? He said, this is only a trial game and you can't tackle that hard. And I said, you silly old fusspot, yeah.
And South's just about to come out. You can see the banner up on the grandstands. These South's players may be smaller in stature, but they're big in heart.
It was a very, very difficult night every time we turned up to train. It was never easy. We'd train at 6 o'clock at night, and we worked day jobs and we had to turn up and train.
My old man had a sand contracting business, and I used to have to go out and load several trucks for 2 loads of a Saturday morning. And when you play the game in the afternoon, you're stiff as anything.
You dreaded getting to August because they used to be so cold the nights here, and with the cricket pitch in the middle, it was like concrete.
There's no comparison anymore to what we did, and when I remember Pat Phelan coming in, he'd been a bricky's labourer. No one had trained better than him. He'd be filthy dirty. He'd know he's exhausted, you know, but he'd just absolutely put in, and no great facilities. Lucky to get a hot shower sometimes, you know.
You take players of the past, you know, they're not necessarily big or great, just average kids from around the area. Like, how tough was Billy Ardross, you know?
We brought Billy up to play first grade. We had a number of injuries. I said to him after the game, I said, oh, Billy, you did really good, you know, and he said, oh, yeah, he said, I was very scared today, Wayne. I said, oh, were you? I said, how'd you settle your nerves down? He said, I had a 6-pack before the game.
Then I met up with characters like Alan Bracken and Johnny Salter, all those sort of guys who initiated me, I guess.
Chris Thorley, Big Bicky Thorley. I love Big Bicky Thorley. I'd seen him play Blimber Cup for Brisbane as a halfback, and when I got here to coach him as a front rower. But look, you talk about the South spirit, he always epitomised the South spirit for me. When he played his heart out every week, he did the best he could, you know, and there was just something about this place. He was a local from here, and it meant so much to the local boys to play for South.
My dad's from West End, my grandparents were from West End. If you're from West End, you're a South. You just had to be. That's what you did, you followed the mighty Magpies.
There was a lot of different community aspects here. There was Lebanese, there was Greeks, there was Italians, but the one thing that held the community together was the football club down the road. So we all felt the affinity to Davies Park.
It was the first club built in Brisbane, and it was the most successful club in the late 60s and early 70s. It hasn't changed a great deal, believe me. And so it has strong memories for me. Yeah.
We play a game out here at Davies Park on a Sunday afternoon, and we come up here and celebrate afterwards, whether win or loss, and you know, get blind up here, you know, and have a fantastic time.
We had the only nightclub in the city on Sunday nights here in Brisbane, and this place used to rock. Back in those early days, you know, we'd have all the people from all over Brisbane here, you know.
We're dancing on tables, the music's pumping, having a few beers. It was packed, I think it was the in spot. The first year probably they taught me how to drink and not drive.
And the Army had a shed here, we used that as a clubhouse for years and years. We had plenty of merry times in it, I can assure you.
It was a meeting place for people to come and see their team play, but just, you know, just to meet. You know, that gives you some sort of community spirit. Without community spirit, I think, you know, we're all in a bit of trouble, aren't we?
That's what this is about. That's what this community, this park is about, that it brought all those people with something in common. They mightn't have been able to speak the same language. They mightn't, come from different background and different cultures. But at the end of the day, we all had something in common, and this is it.
There's nothing flashy about South, but there's nothing flashy about us. We weren't full of ourselves either, So I remember Mel had the opportunity to play for South or go and play for St George. He finished up coming playing for South because all his mates were coming over here. Everybody felt comfortable here. Everyone felt at home.
You follow the leaders, like what your mates do. We play with South, C grade, then they all join the surf club, the Surfers Paradise, and you go down the surf club. So you follow each other's company, and this is the way you fulfil your life.
We looked after each other. We go celebrate somewhere, we go together as a group, and when you see someone that might be getting in trouble, we sort of pull them into line a bit. And that was part of my upbringing, all the senior players at the club, they were good leaders and put in the line if you got into trouble.
I'm in a different world now, and I miss this world because it was what it was about. It was about a club, and the club was everybody, whether you were playing first grade or third grade.
We had a lot more interest back in the game in those days, which made life a lot easier for those guys too, because they had a lot of supporters.
In those times, it was great to celebrate with the fans. We won a grand final. When we did win a grand final, there's 10,000 people here, all on the field, there's marquees everywhere, and everyone's drinking and having a good time.
I remember always seeing Tank full as an old bird and crying at the end of the game when we won. A large man bawling. It wasn't just tears, he was bawling that South had won, and that image has stayed with me forever. It just proves how passionate people are about this place, It brings men to tears.
Look, leading into a grand final week was just something very special. We used to do some road runs from time to time. We used to go through West End, or even driving the training through West End with the streamers hanging out of the shop windows. And some of the old faces, you may not know their names, but the old faces that used to come out of the shops and cheer you on as you went past.
The bakery's always full of black and white cakes and scones, and everyone decorated their front of their stores in black and white, It embraced the whole community.
The thing that was talked about in every bar, every pub in West End was South Football Club and whether or not they were going to win another grand final.
In 1981, up against Redcliffe, I was off the bench. The feeling around that game was as much hope as it was desperation. They just absolutely needed it.
We'd been in the final for about 3 years and we couldn't win one. And when Souths won the final, that was the only time I've ever cried at football.
1 minute left. They're running it. Phelan. Meninga. Red will score, I think. He's in. That could be the one that wins it.
It was pretty exciting, obviously. I grabbed Nick and sort of threw him around like a rag doll, basically. Probably the best tackle I did all day too, but it was all worth it. He didn't care. It was a great day for us. It was an emotional day. We partied for about 2 or 3 days afterwards.
He knew there was the Redcliffe in the corner. That's the winning try. That's a grand final try. And really, South, I think, had deserved to win this match.
The game was still able to survive on chook raffles at pubs and raffles around the clubs, but the writing was on the wall by the early 70s that clubs had to start looking elsewhere.
In the mid-70s, we were in crisis as far as money went.
They made promises to us about, yes, we'll get to the money, and we all stuck in there and we all hung in there. I think it's just the characters of everyone at the time. Just said, yes, South will survive.
Really, they were playing for their club, for their families. They were playing for the jersey on their back and the glory of what winning rugby league games could bring. By 1976, 1977, the league had already identified that their crowd numbers were dropping off. The clubs realised they had to start restructuring and doing things slightly different.
When we first brought Wayne back to take over from Bob McCarthy, I wasn't very open with Wayne, and he could sense there was something wrong with me, and he said, "You're not going to tell me we're broke again, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, we haven't got any money, Wayne." He said, "All right, well, we'll just have to work out some innovative ways to make this happen."
In our era, the mouse races were the big thing. I mean, we got big crowds. There'd be lots of money and everyone would be cheering these bloody mice racing down these little things that Gary's dad had built, you know.
So one of the Greek boys decided we'd have a Manila night, and I was earning some really big money in those days, $3,000 a night. Then the Greek fella decided to tell me one night, he said, oh, we're taking on Jerry Bellino, because Bellino had the big gambling dens in the valley, and he said, I got his dealer. I said, mate, that's the most ridiculous move you've ever made in your life. About 3 o'clock in the morning, two big guys pull up in the car. Who's running the game? I am, come with us. Walked me down the jetty down here and said, play again next week, you're in the river. So that was the end of that money-making venture.
This place should have shut down years ago, and every year there'd be another reason to add to the list to shut it down.
Souths was a dirty word. A lot of people didn't like a lot about Souths. We weren't supposed to be winning competitions. We didn't have any money. None of our administrators were running the game at the top level.
The crowd numbers continued to drop off through the 80s. The emergence of the Broncos in 1988 was just that moment when things had to change.
Money spoiled all sport, I don't care what you say. See, I've never gone for the Broncos, and I never will, because they spoiled our competition.
There was more aspects to that. Television was becoming part of common life. The press jumped on the bandwagon and ditched the Brisbane Rugby League like it had never existed. The trickle of players to Sydney had just become a rush. Every year, half our state side would end up playing in Sydney, and 4 or 5 of them had come up and play for New South Wales and smash us in the interstate series.
It was tough. I never wanted to leave. I never wanted to play for South. I wanted to play for South in first grade, and I did that, and then I wanted to play representative football, and I couldn't do it from here. It was just so difficult to finally realise that I had to leave.
You still weren't considered up there in the top echelon of players unless you played Sydney. I went down there, and I can rest assured that the standard wasn't that much higher.
Money can buy you any player you like, whereas with us, we've got to try and grow that player and want that player to stay at the club.
What we lack in funds, what we lack in facilities, and what we lacked in quality players that we make up for in other areas, we can teach these people good life skills along the way.
The off-field dramas that we seem to be seeing with all the elite players, they're missing out on learning what limits are. They're being thrown a lot of money and living in a fantasy world from the age of about 15.
I think the most I got was £25 once. So I said, listen boy, this will buy 3 5-gallon kegs, and that's where I spent it. The players just played for love.
If Wayne Bennett said something to me, or Tony Tester said something to me, or Bruce Astle said something to me, I'd take it on board. They know they mean it, they care about me, and there's a certain honesty about it.
If you did the wrong thing by your team and you let your team down in some way, you didn't make the team. And that's all I ever wanted to do, was play in the team and not let my mates down.
This grade of football has taught me to be a lot more professional. You need to come through the grades and do the hard yards. Knowing that a club doesn't have a lot of money, but you know, you're here because you want to be here. I play here because I want to play here. South has given me a lot, so I want to give it back to them.
Souths have been blessed with some of the greatest administrators.
Tony Tester, who was just a man before his years. Some of the things he did were just so innovative, it wasn't funny.
Tony Tester. Oh God, he changed us all, didn't he?
I remember Bill Tyquin saying to me once, I need to find a replacement. I said, I've got one. He said, who is he? I said, his name's Tony Tester. He said, what nationality? And I said, he's Italian. He said, what does he know about rugby league? I said, nothing. Why is he good? I said, he just is good. He's just a good bloke.
It was the golden era of South that he took us through. No one liked to let him down, no one wanted to fail him. And I remember the headline, chairman barred from the change rooms. I had to bar him from coming to the because he put everybody under too much pressure. You know, he'd get in there and give someone a cuddle and say, don't play bad today, don't let me down today, you know. And that was the last thing we needed. He was passionate, he was everything that we weren't. He'd cuddle you and kiss you and embarrass you, and those things just didn't happen in this game in that era. I think we all loved Tony. And the bottom line, everybody knew that he cared about him. You were important in Tony Tester's life.
And now, subsequently, we've got a bloke called Jim McClellan, and this place wouldn't survive had it not been for Jim.
You just need that one strong-willed person that believes in the place, and others will get in and help, you know, and that's how they've managed to do it, because the other clubs that have all gone by the wayside haven't had that one person.
years he's kept this club going, and he knows, I think deep down, how I've always felt about the club.
It's a great thing about Jim, you know, he's not just a CEO, he's a great person. He'll do anything for you before himself.
He's South, isn't he? You know, he was South when we were here as young guys. He did my contract. I think I got $3,000, my first coaching contract.
I really believe it's the spirit of the people who have come to the place, have played for the place and have worked in the place and kept it alive. Nothing can show you that more than Laura Lister, for God's sake. 90% of my life has been involved with South, but hers is, 99% of her life has been with South, you know, from a little girl to now. God bless her, 84 years old, you know, and still wearing the black and white.
She's the lady of the club, you know, she's been here forever. You can just tell when she talks, you know, she just talks with, you know, that same word, passion.
I've always wanted to give to the football club because I knew they needed it. So thank you very much for all your applause. 34 years I did in the canteen. Jimmy's always said to me, you've done your job for South. He treats me like a queen now every time I go to a game. But it's kind of nice to be respected and thought about.
Davies Park is extremely important to the history of the Magpies.
There's always been rumours around what's going to happen to Davies Park.
Well, they're moving in gradually like they try to claim it, but they got a good few fighters that help us hold on to it.
We put it to them whether they'd rather play that game at Logan or play it at the home of the Magpies at Davies. The vote went 14-4 to play it at Davies.
You know, when you run out of those sheds, the song's written up there and the big magpie in the shed, you know, you look at it and when you do run out, you sort of feel it and you get this aura over you, comes over your body and yeah, we just sort of transcend into that feeling. The first semi-final in a long time, we wanted to be where we came from.
7 of those kids flew in from Canberra this year. Didn't know a thing about Davies Park, didn't know a thing about South. But I think over the year, they've come to appreciate exactly what the club has meant to so many for so many years.
It just showed that the spirit that's within this club that everyone keeps talking about was there because it captured those guys.
Q Cup is a really good stepping stone for young kids these days. I think it's the second best competition in Australia, definitely.
This competition is where your NRLs and your New South Wales Rugby Leagues have grown from. We're talking about a club that started the game in Australia and in this state. If you come and watch South or any Queensland Cup side, you're not sitting in a seat miles away, you're right in the mix.
To hear the collisions, to hear the players calling plays, it looks 3 times the pace as what it does on TV. That's because you're there and you're part of it and you can't help but be drawn into the game.
Those old days of footy afternoons with your mates sitting on the hill having a couple of cans of beer and watching your team go around, you can still do it. You don't have to go to a concrete stadium and pay $100 a head. You don't have to do that at Davies Park. It's a family ground.
The crowd was buzzing, it was huge.
Well, there's so many Magpie fans out there. Because of the tradition, there's been the whole generations of supporters support the Magpies.
The support was fantastic, you know, and people with their signs and you know, there was guys that I'd never ever seen before with you know, face paint on and screaming out Magpies.
When you actually ran out onto the field and the boys took the field, they went, gee, you know, where did all these people come from?
From warm-up, I knew, just looking around, that we were ready. Everyone bagging us out that whole week. We were no chance, and from the kick-off, their first try, it was like a minute later.
Speed of line, telephone goes along, pops a pass at the kicker, he's in, running from outside in, and South Logan have got first points on the board. What a dream start.
We got off to a flyer. Things were just going to plan and we were all over them.
No one ran up to him, but he was brought down, wasn't tripped, no, play on. Certainly ended up intercept this time by Templeman. Matthew Templeman goes for the corner and scores it.
Well, what a game it is. I think, you know, not too many would have given South Logan too much of an opportunity. They obviously believe in themselves, and obviously that's come out and shown.
We're setting an even market odds. He's bringing it around. Kick this one. He's got it from the toughest position on the field for a right foot kick.
We knew ourselves that we could win definitely. We knew it was going to be tough, but if we hang in there, we'd win.
I think that a lot of those young guys really sort of believed in themselves, knew that finals were a different game, and it wasn't that easy just to go out there and win.
Ipswich, to their credit, fought back hard, and we were on the back foot.
Standing in for Magpies coach Paul Bramley. They're close here. Ipswich are in. The Jets have scored. Michael Ryan has scurried in for a very important try. It's over. And here's Coghill for Ipswich as they attack from their own end. Lee Coghill upfield pushes another one off. What a great run from Lee Coghill. South Logan half again. A good pass to Sweeney. Sweeney going through. Sweeney still going. Sweeney has scored. Ipswich scored two good tries. An incredible try. Sweeney racing onto a pass from Ian Lacey has gone all the way. No one would have backed the big...
In the last bit, I was on the bench, so I was just shaking my knees, and it was very nerve-wracking. I'm a terrible watcher of the game.
Cross again. Cross is back there. Telephone goes himself down the right hand side. Pass up to Rich. Cut down Power. Try. It's a try.
Is it a double movement?
We're going to go to the video. Did he have a hold of him?
Kyle Lodge, the man who scored the try in extra time last week, has he done it again?
I tell you what, this could be a no try. He had the only time he broke free was when he lurched forward.
A few things happened during the semi-finals that sort of pointed to destiny, you know, that this was meant to happen, and I think a couple of things happened during the game that showed that this was meant to happen, that we were meant to win the grand final. And
didn't have control of him.
Oh, here we go. Here comes a huge cork.
It's going to be a try.
There's the grand final, surely for South Logan.
the last time we actually won a grand final, my father took me to that grand final. 23 years later, my father and I at that game, and I've taken my son. And he had the honour of leading the team out as well.
That last try, it was just awesome. I wanted to cry. I probably did cry.
But the relief, I think, was more for the people who believed in us and hung around. It was more for the likes like Jim, for our supporters, the ones who actually stuck by us even through the hard times, you know.
Just from the pride and passion of the whole club, and just sense a lot of relief and overwhelmed.
I think it was just a fairly euphoric moment for us. That day it really showed that they had something special, those boys.
We didn't know half the people we were hugging.
To have them come on and just pick you up, and yeah, it was the best feeling ever. Best feeling ever.
There was a lot of tears, there was a lot of laughter, you know, there was a lot of fun, and you know, growing men cry all the time.
South Magpies being one of the inaugural clubs in rugby league in Queensland, actually taking out the 100-year grand final too, it's symbolic, and it's something the club deserves.
it was just a special moment, and it's something that anybody who's a part of it or gets the chance to be a part of, you just don't forget it.
These guys have written their own chapter in history, and they've etched their names alongside legends of our game.
I don't know what it is, but it'll always be South Ground to me, always.
This is a spiritual home of South, and there's no doubt about that. It's not a place of eloquent beauty or buildings or shrines to people, right? It's a footy park. This is very earthly here, and I think that's the great magic about it.
When you just step out onto that ground, it's something special. And it's special because it's the only ground that's been playing rugby league for 100 years, and it's still playing rugby league. It stood the test of time.
NRL is what everyone strives for. Everyone's got their past. Club footy was where we start. It means a lot. I'll never forget South if I ever make it, you know.
I hope that 100 years of history in one place just doesn't go to waste, and now's our chance to build our history back up and let it be known to everyone in the future.